I'm here with Eva Schloss. She's a Holocaust survivor, very similar to Anne Frank, very similar age at the time. She's also Anne Frank's posthumous stepsister, and she's written a book called Eva's Story about her experiences, and she's had a play written about her. Hello, Eva.
Hello.
Now, I want to start off, because it is Holocaust Memorial Day, why is the day important?
Well, it was for inmates of the concentration camps, especially, of course, Auschwitz-Birkenau, a very important day because we were liberated from the terrible experience we have had being in the camp and not knowing if we were going to live through that experience. And when the Russians advanced and liberated us, that was, of course, for us a wonderful day, a great experience, and in a way we were free.
Because it was a terrible ordeal, wasn't it, in the concentration camp? You sort of starved and treated really badly, weren't you?
Yes, it was awful, and especially there were selections all the time. My mother herself was selected one day, and I thought for 3 months that she had been killed, but through a miracle she was saved. But this was the situation, you just never knew. Then there were the terrible illnesses like typhus, dysentery, cholera, and many, many thousands of people perished without the help of the Nazis. They just died from illnesses, malnutrition, starvation. You know, I was 15 years old when I went in the camp, and people very often asked me, how did you survive? And I said, well, you know, I just didn't want to die. That was one of the reasons. I just never ever gave up hope that somehow I would get through. And I was extremely lucky. There was always something which helped me through again. Primo Levi, who wrote many books, and in one of his books he says as well, when he saw somebody giving up hope, he knew within a few days the person would be dead, and this is what happened.
But the day the Russians eventually came, was you expecting them to come, or was it a massive surprise?
Well, you know, you expect liberation like here on the 5th of May when peace was declared and there was a great jubilation. It was not at all like this in Auschwitz. There was already in December, January, the Germans became very nervous and evacuated most of the camp. This later were called the death marches, where many tens of thousands of people perished. So there were not many people left in Auschwitz-Birkenau. I think it's a women camp, Birkenau. There were about 300. And most of those women were very ill, could hardly get out of their bunks. And one day we woke up and the Germans had left. The Russians hadn't come yet, so there was sort of a vacuum. We didn't really know what was going to happen. Even in this period before the Russians came, many people still died. So it was a very gradual process, you know.
And then after the war, how did you sort of get back to normal, so to speak?
Well, that was again a very, very long period. First we traveled in January with the Russians deep into Russia till Odessa, and we waited there till the end of the war, so that was another 4 months. And then when eventually we came back to Holland, we were waiting the news of my father and my brother, and eventually we got the notification that my brother and father had perished in Mauthausen. So that was again a terrible, terrible shock. And it took everybody really a long, long time to get over this devastation, to make a life without our families. And as well, I was full of hatred, full of mistrust. I didn't trust anybody, not just the Germans, really the whole world, because I felt we had been betrayed so badly. It took me many, many years, perhaps 20 years, to get over this frustration and hatred and to become again an ordinary person in society.
You've actually written a book as well, Eva's Story, about your experiences, and it has been compared to Anne Frank's diary, as you were both the same age, as I said earlier on, and indeed you're related, kind of, aren't you?
Yes, after I got married in 1952, Otto and my mother got married in 1953. So that made me the stepdaughter of Otto Frank and sort of the posthumous sister of Anne. And Otto became the grandfather of my children, and my mother helped him an awful lot with the publication of the diaries in all the languages. It was translated into 70 languages. They made up the contracts. It was very amateurish, you know. It wasn't a business for him. It was just to promote Anne's words. And they got letters from thousands and thousands young people all over the world, which they meticulously answered, and they made many, many friends. And when those teenagers grew up and had children of their own, very often they called the daughter Anne, and Otto and my mother became the godfather and godmother of those children.
Do you think history will repeat itself, or do you think we live in a better world? We've learned from the mistakes of the past and something like the Holocaust could never happen again?
Well, after the war, people said we have learned our lesson, never again. Like after the First World War, that was a war to end all wars. Well, we do know now that, unfortunately, that is all not true. After 45, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, there were again terrible atrocities committed, not in such a worked out way as the Germans did it, and not with 6 million, and I mean 6 million Jews, but many other million other people, which I think we must not forget. So we haven't really learned, but we are working very hard to try to teach our young people now how dangerous it is to have discrimination, not to accept people because they have a different religion or a different color, and as well have the courage to speak up when they see injustice being done. This is what didn't happen in Germany. People turned the other way. Not everybody agreed with Hitler, but people didn't have the courage to speak up.
And it's important, do you believe, that your books and your stories and the stories of other survivors and Anne Frank's diary, it all helps to keep it alive in people's minds?
We are now nearly all dying off, and so the next generation of people will not have met, not have spoken personally to somebody who went through it, and there are people who deny that it ever has happened, even now, when we are still there to stand for witness. But in 20, 30 years, as I'm afraid there will be much more Holocaust denial. And this is why it's important to write books for people to have it, and as well for the young people now to meet us and hear the story firsthand so that they can carry on telling the story.
When you was in the concentration camps, was it really a fear for your life all the time?
Yes, definitely. We knew that people were dying around us all the time. There was Dr. Mengele who picked out people to make experiments and to select them for being guests. So each day you made it was really a bonus. And this is why now I'm an optimist. I enjoy life to the fullest because I know it is a gift. Every day which I got after 45 is a bonus to me.
And you no longer fear death now?
No, I've accepted that it will come. And I mean, I've had, as a youngster, of course, I didn't want to die. I wanted to experience life because life, so it is very often hard and everybody has to go through hardship. Unfortunately, it is still a wonderful experience, and I've had this. So now I know, when it's my time, I've had my life.
And you're looking into the future for your children, your grandchildren, and the world ahead?
I certainly do, and I hope that people will stop being selfish and will have thoughts for people who are more unfortunate than they are, and unfortunately there is a lot of suffering still on this planet.
Thank you very much, Eva.